Hello and welcome to the Midweek Mashed Tattie Sportscast. This is MMA Mash, the weekly mixed martial arts roundup that features all the latest news and reviews from the UFC, One Championship, Bellator, PFL, and so much more. My name is, of course, Mick. As always, I'm joined at cage side by the man that's more question than answer. It's Mr. Paul Kerr.
Yo!
And the ever controversial Mr. Harvey A. Smith.
Booyah!
We are back after the brief summer break. It is time to get back at it. Are you ready to go, lads?
Ready and rearing all by.
I was somewhat convincing.
Sorry, I've been busy catching up on the life and trials of Elvis via that film, so I am all shook up.
Right. Quickly moving on before we fall into a deep dark hole there. Let's get it on. So, what we're going to do today is basically a bunch of recaps. I want to very quickly touch on the stuff that we would have covered last week if we weren't taking the week off. So that is PFL Playoffs 1 and UFC Vegas 59. So we'll catch them first of all, if you don't mind. We'll not go into too much detail. I just want to touch on them and cover the results a wee bit. And then we will move on to this week's stuff, which includes Bellator 284, PFL Playoffs numero 2, UFC San Diego, and then we've got some stuff to look ahead to next week. So, PFL Playoffs 1, it was taking place at the Hulu Theatre, Madison Square Garden, on August the 5th. Did you see any of it? Do you recall any of it? A resounding silence from the lads.
I remember, to be honest, I'm not going to lie, the only thing I do remember about it is Stevie Ray beating Pettis.
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
That's about it, if I'm being honest. It's the only thing that really sticks in my head, obviously, because Stevie's he's a homegrown talent, you know.
Good old Scotsman. Yeah. Fair play. So, basically, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. What I just want to do, because it is this sort of league format of the day and they're in the playoffs, I just want to touch on effectively who's through at the finals. So, for the light heavyweights, we had Omari Akhmedov defeating Josh Silveira and moving on to the finals, and he will take on Rob Wilkinson, who defeated Dylan Monte. Akhmedov beating Josh Silveira by unanimous decision, and Rob Wilkinson defeating Dylan Monte by KO, a big knee in round 1. Then for the lightweights, obviously, Harvey, as you mentioned, the main event was the rematch, the immediate, instant rematch, if you will. Stevie Ray versus Anthony Pettis. And Stevie Ray, what a man, picks up the unanimous decision win. So that's him now, got a submission and a unanimous decision win within the space of about 6 to 8 weeks. I'm not sure the exact time frame, but it's like somewhere in about there. Outstanding, man. So he's through at the final, and he will be taking on Olivier Aubin Mercier, who defeated Alexander Martinez via unanimous decision. That is a very winnable fight for Stevie. Aubin Mercier is a guy with a lot of experience. He fought in the UFC for a number of years. He's got very good grappling. He's a strong wrestler, and he has good striking. But I think Stevie matches him in each of the areas. You'd maybe give wrestling advantage very slightly to Aubin Mercier, but I think Stevie has the sort of out-and-out grappling and jiu-jitsu side of things. I think he's got the advantage there, which I think sort of somewhat cancels out the wrestling of Aubin Mercier. So I think that is a very winnable fight for Stevie. Possible submission win, most likely a decision win for Stevie Ray, I reckon, in that fight. So I would totally pip tip, even Stevie Ray to win the $1 million. I've got to say. I think that fight is his to win, his to lose even. I think he will win that all day long. So look forward to that. Moving on. More to come in the PFL in just a wee bit. So UFC Vegas 59, August 6th. It was at the Apex, Las Vegas. Main event was Jamal Hill and Thiago Santos. Do you recall much of the fights from this card?
My memory is terrible. I remember Muhammad Usman.
Yep. The big little brother.
Big little brother. I remember him. He won his fight.
Yep.
Was that Ultimate Fighter 30 or something like that, right?
It was. I don't know if it was the season 30 or no, but it was the final, whatever season the Ultimate Fighter was.
Aye.
It had been coached by
he gets a
Amanda
contract.
Nunes and her. I can never remember her name. God damn it, I forgot her name again.
What, Pena?
That's it, Pena. Yep. Shoot. So it was Nunes and Pena were the coaches.
Aye. Mind that. Jamal Hill. He won.
Jamal Hill. He did a me.
Jamal. Damn it. Enough correct you. Jamal Hill. 80 round. Jamal Hill. He won by TKO or whatever.
TKO.
Aye.
Right. Okay. So
I think that's about it.
Let's save you. Let's save you there. You're flailing a bit.
Aye.
We'll run very quickly through it. Undercard, Mira Buena Silva defeating Stephanie Egger, submission round 1. Corey McKenna defeating Miranda Granger, submission round 2. That was a Von Flue choke as well. I remember I remember bringing that up in the podcast a couple of months ago and Paul going, I think you made that up. It is indeed a real thing. Brian Battle versus Takeshi Sato. That was a first round KO. Big KO for Brian Battle. That was a good one. Then we had Mikhail Oleksichuk defeating Smiling Sam Alvey, first round KO, and that was the final nail in the coffin for Sam Alvey. He has now departed the UFC. Smiling Sam had lost like 5 fights in a row, maybe 6 going into this fight, but because he's never in a boring fight and he's a long tenured guy, he's always been like a company man, they had kept him around. Despite his losses, a lot of times you lose 2 or 3 in a row, you're gone. In the UFC, they can be harsh. He's one of the guys that he'd sort of, how would you describe it? He'd earned a pass. You know what I mean? So, unfortunately, he has now departed, and he's following the recent trend, and he is calling for a fight with Jake Paul. He's left the UFC, so I don't know what's to come for him. He's a guy that's like, he's low in technique but high in power. So he was never, and he was happy to trade. So he was never in a boring fight, and oftentimes come away with a big knockout. So power to him. He seems like a good guy. Moving on, we had Terence McKinney defeating Eric Gonzalez via submission, round 1. There was a lot of submissions in this card. We had Sergey Spivak defeating Augusto Sakai via second round TKO. We had Juliana Miller defeating Brogan Walker via third round TKO. We had, as mentioned, Muhammad Usman, the big little brother of Kamaru Usman, defeating Zach Poga, I believe his name is, second round KO, and that was hellacious, man. Muhammad Usman is like considerably bigger than Kamaru Usman in terms of stature, but he's only like maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches taller than him. So he's like 6 foot even-ish, there or thereabouts. So he's not particularly tall heavyweight, but he is thick with about 9 Cs. The dude is very well built. He's solid, and he has some serious power. He hit Poga with like a short left hook and just turned the lights off. It was pretty epic.
Yep.
Then we had a hell of a fight in the co-main. Jeff Neal defeating Vinceke Luque Luque, I should say. Third round KO. That was a big win for Neil. It was quite back and forth. Neil was in control most of the way, but it was quite a kind of back and forth fight until the knockout for Jeff Neal. That's possibly the biggest win of his career. That's right up there. He looked really good in doing so, man. He's been on for a while, but he seems to be really improving now. And then Jamal Hill, Thiago Santos, main event, and it was Jamal Hill via 4th round TKO, and that was a good fight as well. Thiago Santos had some serious injury problems, completely destroyed his knee and his title challenge against John Jones like 2 years ago. I think he basically tore every ligament in his knee, totally destroyed his knee. And I want to say either re-injured it or injured the other one during his rehab, trying to get back for that injury. So he's been out for a while. He looked to have sorted himself out, seemed in good health, he was moving well, looked pretty sharp, but Jamal Hill, and was in control, pretty much in control of most of that fight, but Jamal Hill, man, you cannot sleep in that guy's punching power. He doesn't even look like he should be able to punch hard. Like, he's no bodied up, man. He's not an athlete. Sorry, he is an athlete. He doesn't look like an athlete, is what I mean to say. But aye, the dude just has serious power. And aye, he caught Thiago Santos, and that was that. So, that was a quick recap of the week gone past. Now, moving on up to this week, August 12th. We had Bellator 284. Now, because we've got so much to cover today, I'm not going to touch the undercard in this one. The undercard was a mix of amateur fights and kind of less experienced pros and stuff. So we're just going to go straight to the main card on this one, if you please. The main card opener was Aaron Jeffrey defeating Austin Vandervoort via TKO, round 1. It was a bit of a sort of... it wasn't Austin Vandervoort's best effort, I think it would be fair to say.
It was like in Space Jam, where the wee aliens take the big basketball players' powers and then they just kind of walk about as a shell of themselves. Like, see when Patrick Ewing's powers get taken and then he's trying to hit jumpers and he's throwing the ball away and all that kind of shit. That's kind of what this was like for Austin Vandervoort. He was there, but he wasn't really there, was he? It was weird.
It's like the defeat to Guillermo Sassi drained his powers. That's a good way to put it. His confidence, his ego, like that wee extra thing that he had, the attitude that just wasn't there. And I don't want to say did he turn up for the fight, like,
or did he go in there as a movie star looking guy with his lovely cool bleached hair and see this man with 8 tattoos and the most mighty mullet and think, I've been living a lie. What is my life? It's what a mullet.
Maybe it was the power of the mullet that did the job.
Power of the mullet, man. It just totally and utterly neutralised him. Because that is glorious, man. That is... I can hear country music when I look at that boy. So I can. That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Good performance nonetheless.
Aye, good on him, man. Big win for him. For good or for bad, Vandervoort's got a big name. You know what I mean? He's well known in a few circles. So it's a good win for Jeffrey. Main card, big sort of scalp to take. So it can only move him up. Next out we had Gokhan Sarikhan defeating Syed Soma. I'm trying to be kind here. I'm trying to choose my words. It was a split decision win. It wasn't the best fight in the card, and we know exactly the two most athletic guys either.
Mm-hmm. It was very boring. That's the note I made when I was watching it. Very, very boring.
I
think they two going to be your heavyweight champion ever in any promotion.
No, they've got a ways to go if they've got any desire to win some gold, I would say. I think we'll move on quickly for that one. Next out we had the former women's bantamweight champion, Lima Lee McFarlane, picking up a tough, hard-fought victory over Bruna Ellen. this one interesting because, for reasons unbeknown to me, McFarlane missed weight, I think for the first time in her career. She missed weight by 3 pounds. I do not know what was going on there. But she was really hard on herself after the fight. She felt like Bruna Ellen should have won the fight just like by default because she felt she'd failed and no making weight. So I don't know, I guess kind of power to her for taking that one on the chin and like no being an arsehole about it. Like she messed up, she missed weight. Kind of number one job for a fighter is to turn up on weight, so she wasn't able to do that for whatever reason. But her toughness shone through as it has done in the past for her, and she picked up the unanimous decision win. The commentators were talking about this being a kind of generational thing. Liam McFarlane being former champ, the sort of past and present of the division, and then Bruna Ellen being a young talent that's upcoming, that's like the future of the division. So they kind of bigged it up for me, made it more interesting. So I didn't know anything at all about Bruna Ellen going into the fight. Obviously I knew of McFarlane being the former champion, but I didn't really know what to expect out of Bruna Ellen. And she seems tough, she's got a good skill set, but McFarlane just a wee bit too much for her in this fight. So unanimous decision, as I say. Co-main event, Valentin Moldavsky versus Steve Mowry. Moldavsky being the understudy of Fedor Emelianenko, and this one was kind of over before it started, really.
This was unfortunate.
It didn't really
Very
go very far. Less than a minute into the fight, accidental eye poke, and Steve Mowry could not continue. Told the doctor he couldn't see, and that was that. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a great shame.
I don't know. It's always a hard one with this kind of thing because eye pokes rarely look like really bad and fight ending. More often than not, when eye poke, you're thinking, oh, it didn't look that bad. Come on, shake it off. Rub your eye. Give it a second, you'll be alright. But sometimes there's injuries going on underneath the surface that you can't see with an eye. You know, like if the cornea is scratched, if something's torn, you won't necessarily immediately see any bruising or blood or anything, but the guy's going to be in pain and not going to be able to see and stuff. So I don't know what the deal was. I've not read anything to know whether or not there's any serious injury or anything, but seemingly it was bad enough that he couldn't continue. So I don't really want to sort of speak ill about him and say otherwise.
I mean, have you ever been poked in the eye? Like,
plenty of time. It's very rarely fun.
But I mean, and that's what I mean to say is, like, with no force, you've been poked in the eye, like with little force, let alone when somebody's like putting force into it and poking the eye. Like, I can understand like how it could stop a fight.
Oh, definitely, aye.
But some folk just don't understand it. Like, I guess they've never been poked in the eye.
Yeah.
Like, think about getting poked in the eye, just putting your hand up and hit yourself in the eye, like, oh, crap. Takes a minute or two for it to come back. Never mind when somebody's forcibly poked in the eye by accident, you know what I mean? I'm not saying he did it on purpose, but aye.
Who knows what damage was done, and even if there wasn't any major damage, it could just be that, you know, it was that bad a poke / scratch that it just, the pain and loss of vision was just too much. And to be fair, going against a guy like Moldavsky, you don't want to be an eye down. You know what I mean? You don't want to be trying to figure out depth perception in the middle of a fight with him. That's going to be a bad time. Aye, that's what it is, I suppose. It's unfortunate. I have no idea if they'll look to run that fight back in another card or if it's just that's it by, I don't know. So, main event was Gautier Yamauchi defeating Neiman Gracie. This was an interesting one. Yamauchi being the veteran of the two, but both guys being very well known for their grappling. However, there was very little grappling in this fight. It was predominantly striking. There was a couple of kind of grappling exchanges that didn't last long at all. Neiman Gracie, of course, being the latest in the great line of Gracies. He's the kind of latest big hope. He's got a ton of potential. He really does. I think they've pushed him on a wee bit too quick. Bellator's usually quite good at kind of going the boxing route and bringing potential stars on a lot slower and picking their fights a wee bit more carefully, allowing them to build themselves up. But this was always going to be a tough outing for him. Yamauchi going in, you kind of knew that like he had the better striking, he had more experience. Okay, on the deck, maybe Neiman Gracie's got sort of a wee bit higher pedigree as a jiu-jitsu guy, but Yamauchi's like been around the block enough times. He's well known for his grappling. It was going to be hard to submit him, so it was a very, very tough fight for Gracie. However, that being said, didn't quite see it going the way it did. As I say, very little grappling and a big knockout win for Yamauchi in the second round.
Thought it was, I see the name Gracie. I'm not as connected to combat sports as you two guys are, and I expect a bit of pedigree with that name. I wasn't really that greatly impressed.
Well, I think you would have been a lot more impressed if they grappled more.
Possibly, aye. But I know that Gracie was certainly trying to egg him on to come down. Certainly when he was prone on the floor and throwing kicks up at him, he was trying to kind of goad him into joining him on the ground. But like you say, Yamauchi genuinely didn't look interested in it, and quite rightly so, to be fair.
Aye.
Like, no interest in going on the ground with him. Absolutely no interest.
Aye, it's like it was a kind of clear path to victory for Yamauchi. He knew what he had to do. Avoid the ground. Like, there was no need for him to. Like, for the first 10 seconds, it was clear that Yamauchi had a massive advantage. Even if he didn't know it going in, he had a massive advantage in the striking. So it would have been ridiculous for him to then just think, I'm going to go and try and submit a Gracie. Like, it
was straightforward for Yamauchi. It was what I really thought, to be honest. It was obvious, do not go to the ground with him. You have a major mismatch in the striking. I thought it was a major mismatch as far as the striking went between the two of them. Gracie had really looked pretty bang average. So it was, if they're wanting to move this boy on because of his name, then what a terrible fight.
I don't know.
Is there the talent there though to move him on up?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if there was something going on.
Do you genuinely think?
I don't know if there was something going on there, but his striking has looked a lot better in previous fights with Gracie. Right. I don't know if it's just a case of Yamauchi was too big a jump, maybe.
I mean, possibly.
Maybe the guys who's been fighting the striking hasn't been to that level. I don't know. Or if Gracie's came in with some sort of issue. I genuinely don't know. But he has what Gracie has done that sets him apart for Gracie's that have came before him is that in other fights he's mixed it up really well, and he's been able to hang in the striking and use his striking to create opportunities to initiate grappling. Oftentimes with a Gracie, what we've seen in the past is guys who have wrestling that's kind of just good enough and striking that's just good enough so that they can survive until they get a hold of you, and then they drag you down and look for submissions. Neiman Gracie was different because he was more aggressive, he had better striking, he had more options in there. But then when it did go to grappling, he's a Gracie through and through. He's got very, very good jiu-jitsu. So the potential's definitely there with him. I think it's just been too much too soon.
I don't know, man. I just feel like with the Gracies, I've never really had much faith in a Gracie unless it goes to the ground. Like, I don't know what. Obviously, that's their bread and butter, right? Is BJJ, but I've never been too confident in a Gracie.
The only ones that have ever stood out in terms of standing up, or basically in terms of anything other than being on their back and throwing up submissions, the only ones that have really stood out is Rickson, depending on how you would pronounce it.
Rickson Gracie, yeah.
For back in the day. If you go back and watch some of his fights for the likes of Pride and stuff, man, the dude was a beast. He was in fantastic shape as well. He was always really well conditioned. He could strike and he could grapple. And then you had Cron Gracie. I don't know what's happened to him. He was like the hope for the Gracies for a while. I'm sure it was Bellator he was fighting in. may have went to the UFC for a bit, I'm trying to remember. But I've not heard anything for him in a while, so I don't know what his deal is. He was a lighter guy, like a lightweight or a featherweight, I can't quite remember. He was able to mix it up quite well. He had decent striking. And now obviously Neiman, he's the man. So, I don't know. I think it's just back to the drawing board for them and maybe choose their fights kind of going forward a wee bit more carefully so that they can build them up. But I don't know. We'll see. So, we'll see what happens with them. Right. PFL playoffs deuce. This was the welterweights and the heavyweights, August 13th, so last night for us, on day of recording. This was the PFL's first foray into the UK. This card was happening in Cardiff, Wales, down at the Motorpoint Arena. Yep. Something that kind of annoyed me, and I'm not Welsh, so I don't know, maybe Welsh people will feel different, but they had the Union Jack all over the place. They had like middle of the canvas in the cage. They had the Union Jack. They had like the PFL logo. Then underneath it, they had like a semicircle or whatever it was with the Union Jack, and then it said Cardiff or Cardiff Wales, whatever across it. And I'm seeing that thinking like somebody's fucked up here. Like surely that should be the Welsh flag. What are they doing? So I don't know what the deal is.
I don't know. It would. If I was Welsh, I think it would annoy me. I mean, I'm not even Welsh, and I think that's a bit bullshit. But anyway, technically speaking, it's in the United Kingdom, innit? So
well, that's the thing. It's not wrong, but it ain't right.
No, definitely ain't right.
You know what I mean? If they had maybe even went as far as putting the two flags,
I can see that.
A big Welsh flag, and then next to it the Union Jack, I guess. Wouldn't have been so bad. But, I don't know.
Well, I don't know what the deal is, but let's move on before we fall into politics and whatever else. So, again, we're limited in time today. We've got so much to cover. So, all I want to do with this one, again, is look at the brackets and see who's moving on. Just to save us time, effectively. So, as I say, it was in Wales, and there was two or three Welsh fighters on the undercard. There was a couple of Irish fighters, so there was some UK talent on show, sort of thing. So it was cool to see that. Obviously, as I previously mentioned, the PFL have announced that they're doing a European League starting next year, supposed to be, if all goes well.
Yep.
So it's great to see that they're making that kind of investment and they're starting to showcase some of that talent.
Well, a couple of them actually are going to feature in a couple of who have won their fights are going to feature in the European.
Yep. So when we spoke about it a few weeks ago, I was saying that there was a few fights on each of these UK cards where basically there were qualifiers for the European League that's coming. I don't remember off the top of my head what fights that was, if I'm being honest. But it's entirely possible that all the fights that were European fighters, they were stands to reason they were probably the qualifying fights.
I think they were, because I remember seeing a bunch of them being it's a weird thing, I know, with the post limbs. They had the main card and then they had fights after it. They called it the post limbs. Is that something that they regularly do?
I've not heard of that, and I didn't know that was a thing. See, it's
post limbs.
When the PFL got to its main event, the UFC had started, their prelims had started. So I was trying to watch two fights at once, and then as soon as the main event was by in the PFL, I put it off and I was concentrating on the UFC. So I don't know what I've missed. So if you can fill me in,
that makes sense as to why when I said what's this guy doing with the Maxim Bradeur or whatever, you were like, what? Because that was on the post limbs. That's after the main card. So it was after the main card. I was still watching it. I guess I missed it. That it was past the main card until a wee while later. I was like, oh,
that's
they've called it the the post limbs.
My best guess is that they've realised there were going to be an overlap with the UFC, so they've decided to do it rather than start early, which they probably couldn't do based on the venue. They've probably split the card up so that they could get the main fights out the road while people will be watching.
Aye, so they did the prelims, main card, and then
the
post limbs after.
So they had a kind of matinee, an encore. I can't think of ever hearing that. I know that sometimes in boxing there'll be a few random fights after the main event. I think they used to do that for the sake of, like, if the main event was like a first round knockout or something, people would be gutted that they paid money to see it, so they would have a couple of fights in the back burner, like, and if people wanted to stay and watch them because they felt shortchanged, then they're there. But I've not heard of any promotions doing that in a long time, so I don't know. I guess it was to do with the programming, as I say, but it's a weird one. It's also, as you say, it's a weird name thing as well. Like, it would make more sense to just call it like the encore or the after show. The post limbs. I don't know. Anyway. So, just before we touch on the fights that we had in the welterweight and heavyweight playoffs, I just want to note that Magomed Umalatov for the welterweight fight, one of the welterweight fights, and Denis Goltsov from one of the heavyweight fights were not able to get visas to compete in the UK, so they had to be pulled from their fights. This one just doesn't sit right with me, I've got to say. So it was Delano Taylor stepped in to fight Rory McDonald, and Juan Adams stepped in to fight Matthias Scheffel. I feel like when it's something like this where it's league based, there's the playoff system, like, they should have known far enough ahead that, right, it looks like this guy's probably going to get to the playoffs. Let's start working on his visa now because this fight's going to be in the UK. And then if they can't get the visa, I don't know that moving the full card or moving the fight onto a different card, I don't know what the right answer is exactly, but pulling him for the fight doesn't seem fair to me, because the PFL's deciding to put this in another country. Like, he's been fighting in America fine, and then you're going to pull him and take away his chance to win the million because you've decided to put the fight on somewhere else. It seems iffy.
When I heard about it, I was like, that's... One, it was weird because I was like, how did they just not get it in time, or did they get refused? Like, that's the thing, you know what I mean?
I don't know if there's maybe still a blanket ban on Russian and whatever other country people's with the politics stuff going on, so, and obviously the war. So it could be that, because
actually
Magomed Umalatov
is
I think he's Russian. He's for there or thereabouts. He's that neck of the world. So, Denis Goltsov, I've no idea. But so it could be that. Like, it could just be simply down to the nationality. The UK's like, nope. So, and if that's the case, then even more so, like how far ahead of time must the PFL have been planning to come to the UK? You've got to be talking 5-6 months, surely, that's been in the works. For sake of booking venues and that, you've got to give a lot of notice, usually.
I
don't know. Seems odd. But anyway, what do we know? So the actual fights that took place in the welterweight division, Sabadou Sai, coming fresh off his victory against Rory McDonald, who was in the other fight, picked up a win against Carlos Leal by unanimous decision, and he moves on to the final. And then Delano Taylor, who steps in last minute versus Rory McDonald, he picks up a big TKO win, man. He beat the shiznicks out of Rory McDonald. He moves on to the final against Sabadou Sai. Bit of a lukewarm performance for Rory McDonald.
It was new.
The chat seems to be that Rory McDonald and his team were expecting Delano Taylor to start strong, but potentially no be in the best shape. So they were taking,
because he took it.
So they were taking it easy,
Short notice,
letting him off in the first round basically, and that backfired. If that was the plan, it didn't work.
I mean, Delano Taylor said in an interview before it, when I was watching it, he was saying that he thinks he has more desire to get to the final than Rory McDonald. I
can see that.
For whatever reason. So I was like, all right.
Like, Rory McDonald's made a good amount of money through his career. He's had some big fights, made good money with the UFC, made probably better money with Bellator. He was briefly the Bellator welterweight champion, made good money over there. So I can see him sort of having less of a fire in his belly in terms of trying to get to the final and win the million kind of thing. But I don't know. It's an odd one. Props to Taylor though. Props to him.
I was going to say, now he gets the chance to win $1 million.
I think it's an interesting matchup, him and Sabah Sai. Obviously Sabah Sai, like, strong wrestler, used his wrestling to get past Rory McDonald, and Rory McDonald is a very good grappler, very good wrestler, so that shows you the level that Sai's wrestling is on. And then he mixed things up reasonably well in his fight with Carlos Leo on the card there to get the unanimous decision. So
aye,
not the most exciting style, but like, he's very good at what he does.
I mean, that fight that we had today in that fight, to be honest, on that card, he won that by a mile.
Aye.
He was just
and you can't be mad at that as well in this sort of system, because you can't afford to take chances and pick up an injury. Otherwise you might get pulled for your fight and lose your chance to win the million. So you've got to play it safe and just make sure you're getting the win by any means necessary, sort of thing. So I'm intrigued to see if he kind of goes for it a bit more and mixes things up more in the final, or if he again just kind of plays it safe. And Delano Taylor, big power, but also very good wrestling. Again, he took Rory McDonald down quite early in that first round there. Well, the round. And controlled him really well. Landed good ground and pound, good movement and stuff. And then once it was back in the feet, like, it didn't take long, he landed the big shot. So I'm intrigued by that matchup with Taylor and Sai. On the heavyweight side of things, we had Matthias Scafel defeating Juan Adams. So Juan Adams obviously was the other guy that stepped in. It was a late replacement. It looked good for Juan Adams early.
Well,
decent wrestling. Took Scafel down a few times, but
good chin.
And good chin. Oh, he took a hell of damage. God damn. Matthias Scafel was like punching his head off, but Juan Adams just like, he just did that zombie mode switched on, man. He just took it. Eventually the referee was like, mate, that's enough. I can't watch this anymore. The referee like took pity on him.
When he punched him and one was just kind of like stumbled away. Like, I don't even think he knew where he was, to the middle of the ring, and
he's got like the mad staring eyes as well. It just adds to it. But
he's a school teacher, isn't he?
Juan Adams.
I don't know. Yes.
First I've heard of that, mate. I don't know.
He teaches 7th grade, whatever that is in America.
I can't even hazard a guess, man. I don't know how many grades they've got. So is that like effectively 7th year? So primary 7, there or thereabouts.
I don't know.
God knows. So big win for Scafel. Scafel actually lost to the guy that won the other fight, we'll just come to in a second, during the sort of season, the regular season. So I don't really fancy his chances in the final, I've got to say. However, it is a chance for revenge for him. So this was a big win for him, getting the TKO in the third round. So I would have been really interested to see what the judges' scores were going to be if that had went the distance, to be fair. Because Scafel was landing all the damage, but Juan Adams was being the aggressor, and he had the grappling on his side. So I think Scafel would have been the rightful victor, but sometimes with the judges, man.
I think Scafel. You never know. 12-13.
What? All age for who teaches. I was like, I had no idea what you're talking about for a second there. Right, other fight. We had Ante Delija defeating Renan Ferreira. TKO round 1. This was a beatdown, man. This was a mugging. Renan Ferreira is a big Brazilian who is like an incredible athlete, and he has all the potential in the world to be like a future champion. He's just not ready yet. He's not got the experience.
Right.
He's 6'8" and just a natural athlete, man. Powerful, fast. Like he can do like flips and stuff. Like he's an insane athlete for his size. And Delija is a guy who is the understudy, the sort of top pupil of the Croatian legend Mirko Krokop. And he's got that look about him, man. Like he's got the face of a stone cold killer.
He's he's only 33.
He looks like 50. He looks like he's been working in the railroad for all his days, never slept a wink in his life, man. Like he's leathery faced, just no emotion behind the eyes, man.
Oh man,
he's a good striker. He's got a similar kind of striking style to Krokop, but what he's also good at is something that Krokop was very good at, and that's ground and pound. It's just sitting in guard or half guard and just wailing on a guy. And if Renan Ferreira's got a weakness, it's grappling, and that was showed in one of his sort of regular season. Like he'd won big, I think in his first fight. It was like a first round knockout or something, and so that got him the points he needed to get through at the playoffs. But then in his next fight, he got beat through wrestling. So that was like a clear path to victory for Delija, and that's what he went with, man. And he just beat the shit out of him. He took him down and beat the crap out of him, man.
Yep.
So there we go. So just to reiterate very quickly, welterweight final is going to be Delano Taylor and Sabado Sai. Heavyweight final is going to be Ante Delija versus Matthias Scheffel. Both interesting fights. Welterweight fight a wee bit harder to pick a winner there, but my money's on Delano Taylor for the welterweights, and heavyweight. I think like Delija is like he's already beat Scheffel. He's beat him once before, fairly easily. So I think we know what way that's going. But Scheffel could surprise us. He's certainly got the power. Moving on, UFC San Diego. The UFC are getting very lazy with their naming, I've got to say. Like they'll just like, where's the fights this weekend, troops? San Diego, right, there you go. Fling that in the poster. Like I remember the days when it was like UFC 23 Warzone, or like, you know, like do you know what? This could be a laugh, right? Hold on.
I mean, they're running out of names.
They had some fantastic names back in the day. The Ultimate Fighting Championship.
San Diego, City of Angels.
know what that means in English? A whale's vet? No.
Right, so starting where do we, right, so that's a good place to start. Right, 96, UFC 9 Motor City Madness.
Ooh,
right,
from Detroit.
Motor City Madness.
UFC 11 was The Proving Ground. UFC 13 The Ultimate Force. UFC 15 was Collision Course. UFC 16 Battle in the Bayou. That's a good one. 17 was Redemption.
Battle in the Bayou.
Like there's some crap. Ultimate Young Guns. UFC 19 Battle for the Gold. UFC 20. What do we see? UFC 24 First Defence. I guess somebody was making the first title defence or something in that one. UFC 40 Vendetta. UFC 41 Onslaught. UFC 42 Sudden Impact. This is like in the 2000s where they've started to go mental. So you've got this run where they go Brawl at the Hall, The Warriors Return, Vendetta, Onslaught, Sudden Impact, Meltdown, Undisputed, Revolution, Supernatural, It's On, Payback, Unfinished Business. Like, they had some epic names back in the day, man, for hilarious reasons at times, but somewhere along the line they just kind of, I don't know if they had enough of it, like they ran out of like creativity, I don't know. But now it's just like UFC, San Diego. Oh Christ, right. Back to what we're actually talking about. UFC San Diego. So it was August 13th again, same night as PFL, directly after the PFL, well actually overlapping with the PFL, as I mentioned earlier. Right, what are we doing for time? What are we thinking here? Right, biggest thing happening. Right, there's some cracking fights. Well, no. Right, let's start with that. So, third fight of the night was Tyson Nam defeating O'Day Osborne. Fantastic fight. Big KO victory for Tyson Nam. Tyson Nam looking probably better than he ever has. He looked phenomenal. The dude's 38, but he looks about 18. He's got a dead young face. And he's been fighting for years.
He does have a young face.
He's got a performance of the night bonus for that victory there. So big ups to him.
Bit of a mistake for Osborne, though, wasn't it, with the big flying knee?
Aye, it was.
Well, aye.
He had a bit of an arse.
He kind of left himself open.
Osborne, aye. He did a jumping knee, and then Ham just kind of like stepped back.
Went, nope.
Smacks him with the right hand, which when O'Day lands, he rolls backwards, and Ham just goes.
Nam charged in and lapped him. It was reminiscent of Fedor Emelianenko and Andrei Arlovsky when there was a promotion called Affliction. I don't know if you remember that or not. There was a promotion called Affliction, like run about kind of 2000 sort of 10, 11, 12, somewhere in about there. They tried to get this promotion off the ground and it ended up through bad investments and other stuff. It fell on its arse after the first event. But the main event of the first event was Fedor Emelianenko versus Andrei Arlovsky. And Andrei Arlovsky had been in great form going into the fight, went for a flying knee. Fedor Emelianenko went, nope, and swatted him out the sky and knocked him out cold. It reminded me of that.
I should remember that. Aye. I remember that. Just when you say that.
Aye. It was perfectly timed for Fedor, and Per Arlovsky went down like a ton of bricks, man.
Mm-hmm. But I did like to see that for Ham, though, because not a lot of fighters would have done that. They would just have stepped back.
Aye, should have just dodged out the road of the flying knee. But earlier in the fight, O'Day had sort of did the same thing. So seemingly Tyson Nam has like lodged that in his brain. He's like, right, when he does this, he then jumps with the knee. So then he's done it again a couple of minutes later, and it's just been a wee trigger in his brain. He's saved that information. He saw the setup and he's just timed it perfectly and cracked him in the chin on the way in.
Yep.
So the other big thing for the undercard, there was a bunch of split decisions and stuff, but there was some knockouts and whatnot. But what we also had was Nina Nunes, the wife of Amanda Nunes, picking up probably the best win of her career in a split decision over Cynthia Cavillo, but then retiring.
Oh.
So she is the kind of latest in this sort of generation of fighters that's stepping away. She's got very valid reason for doing so. Like, she's basically says she's no by having kids. Her and Amanda want to have another kid, and she's really focused on her coaching now. She does whatever gym they're at, whatever, she does a lot of coaching. She coaches women's classes and stuff. So she wants to focus on that, and she wants to have another kid. So rather than taking more time away to then try and get back in shape and come back again, she's decided she's took her career as far as she ever wanted to. She says she started as a hobby in her post-fight interview, and it ended up like going well for her, and she went pro, she made it to UFC and everything else. So she's happy with what she's done. She's focused on like family life and stuff. So power to her, man.
Yeah, fair play.
So that was kind of biggest talking point coming off the undercard, other than big win for Tyson Nam. But there's a lot to check out there if you haven't seen it. There was like a few good finishes and stuff as well. So, main card. Oh, is there something you want to...
Did I? Aye.
What?
No. I was just thinking, did I call Tyson
You
ham
did
earlier?
multiple times.
No.
Multiple
Aye.
times. I tried to correct you. You didn't hear me. It's all right. It's all good, man.
See, I corrected myself later.
There was a couple of times when you said ham and I immediately went nam, but you just kept saying what you were saying. You didn't catch it. So it's all good, man. It's all good.
I didn't hear you at all.
We knew what you meant.
Oh, anyway.
So, main card. We had Gerald Mierschgrat defeating Bruno Silva via submission. That was a fun fight, man. It was round 3, the submission came. It was quite back and forth, that fight. I enjoyed that.
That came for that left hook. Well, kind of hook. Straightish hook. They were. I just put it into the base and being knackered, and him just got hitting him and then went to the ground.
Aye.
That was the one I'm thinking.
Aye, he dropped him a left hand and then he went. I think he went to go down on him, and as he went down, Bruno Silva was then trying to get up and shooting in his legs, and then
Well, he tried to punch him a couple of times,
Aye.
but the punches weren't doing anything because they were just so knackered, and he was just like, "Oh,
18.
I'll just fucking choke you."
Aye, so Mierschgrat's a guy that he's known for his grappling. Because the commentators actually made a big deal about talking about how like a lot of other guys where they like knackered themselves going for a TKO, they would have tried to finish him with the strikes, whereas he's being a grappler like just took that route. But I think it was also a case that like he was a bit knackered and he was like that the punches on the working here, like the chokes there, let's just go with that.
If you look at it, you can see him, he's actually punching him, going for the knockout. And then because he's knackered, he's like, fuck this.
It's a good finish as well. Like Mierschgrat, like he goes high elbow. He corrects the position a couple of times before he puts the proper squeeze on. So it was well finished for him. Next out we had Priscilla Cachoeira defeating Ariane Lipski. This was Battle of the Brazilians, and Cachoeira, man, big TKO win, just over a minute into round 1. She beat the brakes off her. Ariane Lipski's no joke, man. She's really good. She's a former champion for KSW, the Polish promotion. She was champion there. She's done well in some of the Brazilian promotions and stuff as well before coming to UFC. She's had 3 or 4 UFC fights prior to this as well. Like, she's looked good in the UFC. And then Cachoeira's just like no kill. she just looks hard, and she beat the brakes off her Lipski, man. It was reminiscent of like the old kind of shooter box style, the Brazilian kickboxers, man, like where Vanderlei Silva and all that came from, like just wild carnage, just proper went for her. Next out we had Devin Clark versus Azamat Murskanov. And first round and a half or so, like quite back and forth. Devin Clark seemed like the bigger, stronger guy. He was fast. It was doing not too bad. It was quite back and forth. But then come the end of the second round, like Azamat was really kind of taking control coming in. He was landing the much better shots and stuff. And then third round, like he just sat him down with a body shot. Like, he just totally took the wind out of him, and then finished him on the ground. It was like, he said in his post-fight interview that he had been hitting him in the head, and like he realised that like Devin Clark was like too tough or whatever, so he wasn't going to win with that, so he decided to go to the body and then just cracked him in like the solar plexus and took the wind out of him. But very impressive, man. The guy's undefeated. Azamat Murskanov, he's I think like 18-0, 19-0, something like that. I don't know who or where he's been fighting, to be fair, but seems like a prospect. But good.
I don't know, but that body shot was a thing of beauty.
Oh, aye.
He just sent Devin straight to the canvas. He was like, I jumped on him then, didn't he? Took a while for the ref to stop it though.
Aye, the ref gave him a chance to do something, but it was like when you properly get the win taken out, you like it shuts you down. You can't do anything. Anyway, moving on. The next out was the Battle of the Yasmins. So we had Yasmin Uragi, I believe it's pronounced, defeating Yasmin, I think it's pronounced, Lucindo, something along the lines. Unanimous decision. I was surprised that the decision went the way it did. I thought that Lucindo was going to win that, but it was a very close fight. And so the thing with this one, right, you had Uruguay, who is 23, and then Lucindo, who's 20. Right? Now that's really interesting. What's also really interesting is that Lucindo has been a pro for 6 years in his 18 fights coming into our UFC debut here. So let me reiterate that she's 20 and she's been fighting pro for 6 years already.
So she's been fighting pro since she's 14. In which country is this?
Like, that sounds like something they do in Thailand,
right,
man. But
okay.
apparently in Brazil they started that as well.
That's just a tad iffy.
I've never heard of that anywhere
That
other than
makes
Thailand.
sense. Brazil, I think.
Like, I mean,
especially kickboxing,
amateurs and stuff, but I've usually pro anywhere other than Thailand. Turning pro is like 16 or 18, depending on what country you're in. But she's got quite a story as well. Like, apparently, there was domestic abuse going on in the house when she was growing up, so she turned to martial arts because she wanted to be able to protect her family. And she ended up, she had a flair for it, man. She had a talent, and by 14 she was fighting pro, which is wild. So Uruguay going away with the decision there, but a very close fight, a hell of a fight. I thought that was going to be fight of the night. It was really good, back and forth.
It was a good fight, actually. But fucking hell, how many fights did you say she's had now?
So I think that was her 19th fight, if I remember right. Professional fight, aye. So I don't know about amateurs.
Aye, that's.
I mean, it's not in the level. It's not in the level of like some ties, with the Thai boxing. Like the time they're 20, they might have over 100 fights, but like, and like, this is MMA we're talking about as well. Like, this isn't just pro fights across the board. Like, this is pro MMA. So I don't know what she's been doing outside of that. She might have been having kickboxing fights and stuff as well. I don't know. But she's a beast, man. She's a beast. So both of them are. So they're strawweights, £115. So like that's one of the lighter divisions, typically in the UFC. So it's great that that's like a couple of young talents that can bolster that division for years to come, man. It's kind of a shame that they fought. Like that could have been like a contender fight or even a title fight in a few years. You know what I mean? But there's every chance they'll fight again, man. Co-main event of the night, Nate Landwehr defeating David Onama. That's his name. Sorry, I couldn't stop. It was like a tick there. I could not stop that coming up. Fight of the night, this was. Majority decision for Landwehr. One hell of a fight, this.
It was extremely good fight. Back and forth. It had near stoppages. Well, the only thing it didn't have was a stoppage.
That was always missing. It nearly had one of them as well. Right at the end.
I was not saying a near stoppage, but aye. It's a cracking fight, man.
Diddly. Fantastic fight. Highly recommend it if you've not seen it. They beat the crap out of one another, man. It was really back and forth, which was great. That's what really makes a good fight. Like proper back and forth. Like Landwehr was all about the volume, and then Onama, as much as he was absolutely gassed for the second round, like every now and again he would just muster up the force inside and just launch a massive right hand at him. And then he would have Landwehr like backpedaling, like, oh crap. And then he would work his way back in, and really, really, really fun fight. Definitely up there by the best fights of this year so far. And then main event of the night, Marlon Chito Vera defeating Dominic Cruz, former champion. Performance of the night
via nose break.
Aye, via nose demolition. Performance of the night bonus for Marlon Vera's stoppage, which was a big ass head kick TKO victory in the fourth round, no less. Like, and this was a really interesting fight to me, right? Because on paper for me, Dominic Cruz was winning that fight, which sounds wild because Dominic Cruz got knocked down in 3 out of the 4 rounds. Vera has so much power, and any time he landed, it was a problem for Cruz. But Cruz was just so active, landing so much, threatening with takedowns. Took him down in the first round, and he was threatening with takedowns in the subsequent rounds. He was like effectively on paper dominating the fight, but in terms of damage done, like it was all Vera. Like any time he landed, it was a problem. And then of course, his coaches had told him in between the 3rd and 4th round that in the end of your combo, fling up the left high kick. Cruz has a tendency to dip away to the right when you're throwing straight punches, so he did that, and hey presto, nose job.
Aye, nose job, right. You can just
flattened it.
Man.
Totally flattened his nose, man. In the slow-mo, you can just see it getting flattened. Nasty.
The slow-mo,
I mean, you can see it in real time, but like slow-mo, it's extra graphic.
You can see it more prevalently.
I've got to wonder what's next for Dominic Cruz. 2-time champion at bantamweight. Had some terrible time off with injuries throughout his career. Like, lost the best years of his career to injury. He was champion in WEC. Came over to the UFC like 25, 26, champion, and then blew out his knee, ACL gone. Rehabbing. While he's rehabbing, ACL goes in the other leg. Rehabbing that, the one that got repaired in the first leg goes again, if I remember rightly. Comes back, fights a few times, blows out his knee again, he's away rehabbing, comes back for that, breaks his hand in a fight, he's out for a while, trying to sort his hand. Like, he's had a terrible time with injuries, lost like 4+ years of his career, just sitting out trying to rehab injuries. It's wild. Obviously that's allowed him to like build his sort of broadcasting career. Like, he's set when he's done fighting, he is set. Like, he's got coaching and he's got his broadcast stuff. Like, he's a total sort of TV personality now. Like, he's got commentating with the UFC, and he's got like analyst duties with ESPN and whatever other companies he's working with. Like, the dude is set for life basically, and he's obviously made a good amount of money fighting and stuff as well. So he's got options there, which is great, but he's a guy that's definitely still got the fire in him and like wants to win the belt again. He probably feels cheated, to be fair, because he's lost that amount of time.
That's you'd feel, you'd definitely feel away after all the injuries and that, not getting the chance to compete for the UFC title. Hard thing, man. But what's next for him? Probably plastic surgery.
Mr. Harvey Smith with the controversy. Straight in there.
Certainly ain't sniffing anything because he ain't smelling food for a long time. Making trumpet noises when he breathes in through his nose.
That's a shame, but it's true. Aye, so earlier fight, like, I really enjoyed it, man. Dominic Cruz looked back to his best, but Marlon Vera is just on the ascendancy. That dude is coming for a title shot. I don't know if he gets the title shot next to it or no, but he's coming for that title. So it's looking very interesting at bantamweight now. So that just about covers it. So, upcoming next week, August 20th, Jeddah Superdome, Saudi Arabia. Boxing for a change. We've got Alexander Usyk versus Anthony Joshua 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
There's a bit of a card announced. It's nothing crazy. We're short for time, so I'm not going to bother going through it. But very interesting fight to see if AJ can regain his titles, or if Usyk really is that damn good. Obviously he is that damn good, but is he that damn good at heavyweight? Probably aye. But let's find out if AJ can go in with a decent game plan and have any chance of getting his belts back. Will be interesting. something else that's interesting that's happened in the last day or two. Tyson Fury, just while we're on the boxing, Tyson Fury's announced that he's decided he's staying retired and he's making it official, right? Which, to use a wrestling term, I think is a work, I've got to say. Because, let me tell you for why. He's officially relinquished the Ring magazine title, but he's relinquished the WBC title. I think, and then he was in an interview, he was bigging up the Ring title, saying it was like the holy grail of boxing to win the heavyweight Ring title, which I think is bullshit.
Aye.
That's nonsense. He's at it. So, I think what he's doing is he's been talking up a potential fight with him, and I think it was Chisora. He was trying to get to fight him.
Aye, but Chisora didn't want to.
I don't think it's that he didn't want to. Like, I think he wanted his fair share of the money, and Fury camp was been dickish with him, I think. But anyway, so there's that, and then he's been trying to drum up some interest in him fighting Thor Bjornsson, the strongman who recently moved into boxing, which is stupid.
But Thor even think about taking that
I don't know,
fight?
if the money's right, you probably would, but it's...
Oh, but why? If the money's right, I would take it. I know, but
that's the thing, innit? It doesn't mean it's going to be a good matchup. So I think what's happening here is Fury's taking a page out of like the likes of Conor McGregor's kind of playbook. Like, he's just keeping his name in the press. He's relinquished that one title to try and justify his announcement that he's staying retired. And also what it does is it now means that the Ring have announced that title will be on the line in the Usyk AJ fight. So the winner of that fight, that's basically now the number one contender fight for that belt. And top of all the rest of the belts been on the line. So now, whoever wins that has all the belts with the exception of the WBC belt.
The WBC.
So it all but guarantees that Fury gets next.
Aye.
So I think he's at it. I think it's a work. But anyway.
I thought it was a work. Ages ago when he said it, I said, I don't think he was retiring. But whatever.
So, just to round it out, also August 20th, we have PFL Playoffs 3, this time coming from the Copper Box Arena in London. I've never heard of that before, so I don't know where that is. Well, I know it's in London, but I don't know what arena it is. Well, I know it's called the Copper Box. I'm talking shite. But anyway, I've never heard of the Copper Box Arena. But it's in London. So, this is the women's lightweight and the men's featherweight divisions. The main card and the playoff fights are Ryoji Kudo versus Bubba Jenkins, Larissa Pacheco versus Helena Kolesnik, Chris Wade versus Brendan Loughnane, and Kayla Harrison versus Martina Jindrova. Kayla Harrison, Martina Jindrova being the main event. And I think we'll leave that there because we've not got time to talk about it much. And then UFC 278, also on August 20th, so it's going to be a busy Saturday night. Try to watch all of this. So, UFC 278, main card is as follows: Tyson Pedro, Harry Hunsucker, Marcin Tybura versus Alexander Romanov, Jose Aldo versus Marab Divashvili, Luke Rockhold versus Paulo Costa, and main event, Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards for the welterweight title. So, any final thoughts, lads?
No.
I still can't get over what a name that is. Harry Hunsucker.
We spoke about that the last time he was fighting.
Aye. My eye's going to be on the boxing more than the PFL, to be honest. Probably watch Kayla Harrison live. But
I'll likely watch the PFL undercard and then switch to the boxing for the main event, and then I'll catch up with the PFL when I get a chance, most likely. So, if you have been, thank you very much for listening. This has been a slightly longer one than normal, but we had to make up for a week's holiday, so it is what it is. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening. As I say, I've been Mick, they've been Harvey and Paul. I thank you, a goodbye, see you again next week. Bye, driver.
Bye, driver.
Bye.
Bye. Tattie. Cheery.